Ferris Bueller's Day Off, released in 1986, is John Hughes' fourth time in the director's chair. For having only directed 3 films previously, Hughes knocks this one out of the park. In the words of Jason Reitman, director of Juno, "If I had directed Ferris Bueller's Day Off, I might have just called it a day after that." This statement crystallizes the film's perfection in the eyes of not just fans, but filmmakers as well. It is considered a cult classic and is often listed among the best comedies ever put to film. Everyone knows and adores this movie, but why? When setting down to write this review, I found myself drawing a blank. To paraphrase Jeannie Bueller, what makes this movie so goddamn special? This film has comedy, romance, shenanigans, escapades, near misses, and life-altering events. Ferris Bueller's Day Off is more than just a high school fantasy comedy, however. Like Hughes' other teen films, heavier issues are at work here. Themes of loneliness, disillusionment, and jealousy have been explored extensively in Hughes' previous work. But one of the things that makes this film so fascinating is that it seems like this is the film John Hughes had been leading up to for years. Ferris Bueller takes these themes and uses them for one outstanding thesis on life and relationships. The previous films talk primarily about high school, but Bueller is the one film in the canon to expand extensively beyond high school and lay these themes at the doorstep of adulthood. For those of you who have never seen this film, Ferris Bueller's Day Off follows the world's most popular high school student as he decides to fake sick in order to take the day off. He takes along his best friend Cameron and his girlfriend Sloane for an adventure that spans the city of Chicago. Not so hot on his trail is the dean of Shermer High School, Edward R. Rooney, played by Jeffrey Jones, as well as Ferris's hate-filled sister Jeannie. The film follows the trio from high-end restaurants and museums to the stock exchange and culminates in the city's German Day Parade. These events are extraordinary to be sure, but what really makes this film brilliant are its characters. When you get right down to it, the film might seem like a collection of skits and situations, but because the characters are so well drawn, they give the scenes emotional context. What's more, there are no bad characters in this film. Even the smallest roles are memorable and well played. Each of these characters connects to one another, and we get to see how these relationships develop from Ferris outward. The first people we meet in the film are Ferris's parents, Tom and Katie Bueller. They adore their son and seem to be more than willing to buy the lies that he spins. Unlike Hughes' previous teen films, 16 Candles and Pretty in Pink, the parent-child relationship in Ferris Bueller's Day Off is a tad broad. The Buellers are portrayed as soft on discipline when it comes to Ferris, but hard when it comes to Ferris's sister Jeannie. We don't get any sage-like wisdom or heartwarming moments. The two of them exist primarily to illustrate the rift between the two siblings. Jeannie Bueller is the antithesis of her brother. Where he is adored by everyone, she is often pushed to the background or straight up hated. And not without reason. She's a bit of a sour-faced bitch, and does little to ingratiate herself to anyone. Consequently, she despises her brother because he's so respected and adored and is able to get away with everything without consequence. She spends her day trying to prove that Ferris is faking sick, mostly to validate her poor opinion of him, as well as change her poor opinion of herself. Ferris's relationship with his girlfriend Sloane is one of fun, romantic adventure. For the most part, Mia Sara's portrayal of Sloane is one of Ferris's equal. She possesses a confidence and easiness with everyone she meets. Now, I could point out that at the beginning of the film, she seems to just fill the role of the stock girlfriend character. But as the film goes on, we get more of her compassion and attitude as it relates to life. It's clear that she adores Ferris, and while she doesn't want to marry him on their day off, it does seem like it is in the cards for these two. Her most powerful scene is actually one where she's with Cameron. The two discuss both their hopes and inadequacies and fear about the future. They both point to Ferris as the one who has it all figured out. It's a beautiful moment and plays as a perfect counterpoint to the famous parade scene. Ferris has a cat-and-mouse relationship with Dean Rooney, which is bizarre because the two only share one scene in the entire film. Most of Rooney's plotline revolves around catching Ferris ditching school. His reason? He feels that Ferris Bueller effectively undermines his authority. And he's right. Rooney's a classic archetype of comedy. He takes himself ultra seriously, which is why it's so amusing to see him fail. While Rooney and Ferris only meet once in the film, you do get a sense of a grand history there. Rooney is primarily meant to represent everything wrong with adulthood. His lack of humor and sense of self-importance can be regarded as an affront to everything Ferris stands for. You get the sense that Rooney has no idea what it was like to be a teenager. These character relationships are core to the film, and while we see these dynamics work in comedic scenes, they never feel forced or unbelievable. We believe in these relationships, and therefore we believe in the scenes themselves. Throughout the film, in between comedic moments, there are scenes of deeper exploration which work just as well as the comedy. The musical montage in the museum gives us a visual representation of the trio of friends, in particular, Cameron. We also see them at the stock exchange chatting about marriage. These scenes are beautiful but not comedic. They give us real reasons to like our characters, to care for them, and the desire to see where they will lead us. While Ferris is certainly the hub of the film, there is definitely more at stake here than Ferris getting caught ditching school. We know from the get-go that Ferris will succeed. His character is fascinating in that he is unbound by earthly law. He breaks the fourth wall to talk to us. He's got style, and when we watch him hatch his schemes, we feel like we know him. We, like most everyone at Shermer High, want to be Ferris's best friend because he represents what we all want from ourselves. Freedom. But Ferris as a character never changes, and we don't really want him to. It's comforting to know that someone in this life has the game figured out, even if it's not us. However, we do see significant changes in three other characters throughout the course of the film. Edward Rooney pursues Ferris relentlessly simply because he thinks by removing Ferris he will be able to regain control of his school. During the pursuit, Rooney loses everything: his car, his shoes, and most importantly, his dignity. He is a foil for Ferris, but an ineffectual one, and even though we know the outcome in advance, we kinda want to know if Rooney will get his man. Rooney's change is the most physical, going from well-dressed administrator to broken, beaten, and riding a school bus. When we last see Rooney, he's been destroyed by his own hubris and is actually less than the students he governs. Jeannie, Ferris's sister, is another antagonist. As she goes to prove Ferris is lying to everyone and succeeds, she is foiled by Rooney entering her house uninvited, and the two kind of ruin each other's plans. Jeannie ends up in a police station, browbeaten by her mother, who presumes that she's the liar, and ends up spilling her guts to a drugged-out yet sage-like Charlie Sheen, who manages to give her a new perspective on her situation. So when we last see Jeannie, she decides to help her brother avoid the clutches of Rooney instead of getting him into trouble. The third character to see a change is perhaps the most important: Ferris's best friend Cameron. When we first meet Cameron, we humorously identify him as a morbid and tortured human being. He has an awful home life and hates his father. Both of his parents are mentioned but never seen, unlike Ferris's parents who dote on his every breath. At the beginning of the film, we hear Ferris say that he isn't taking the day off for himself, he's taking the day off for Cameron. At first we chalk this up to a tactic used by Ferris to get his friend to pick him up. By the end of the film, we see the truth in it. Ferris knows that his friend is in pain and wants to show him a good time. This film is called Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but could just as easily have been called Cameron Fry's Reason to Live. Putting Ferris aside for a moment and looking at this classic film with a new perspective, we can unlock several key moments throughout the movie. Cameron's hesitation to let Ferris take the Ferrari. This car is the linchpin for Cameron's hatred of his father. Cameron staring endlessly at the George Seurat painting, viewing a lone girl amongst a bunch of others, feeling the same loneliness in himself. Cameron's own thoughts on his parents' loveless marriage come out when Ferris proposes to Sloane. Cameron claims to Ferris that he hasn't seen anything good at the end of their day, and this leads Ferris to perform in the parade. All of these events lead up to Cameron's freakout and the eventual destruction of the aforementioned car. The more you look at this film, the more you realize the entire day, every event is all because Ferris wants to help his friend. And at the end of the film, when Cameron destroys his father's car and comes to terms with their relationship, we cheer. Because we realize that this isn't about Ferris getting away with his day off. This is about Cameron living his own life free of fear. And as Ferris and Sloane leave the garage, we, for the first time, get a sense that Cameron is going to be alright. Okay, I can't get away from this review without mentioning the music. As I've mentioned before in several parts of the Hughes Reviews, music is an important part of every John Hughes movie, because John Hughes was into modern music and he used it extensively in his films. But in Ferris Bueller, we had a fantastic cross-section of music from all eras. Dankeschön, as sung by Wayne Newton, is a constant theme in the film and culminates in the big parade scene. The song Please, Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want, an instrumental version from the Dream Academy, which was a cover from the Smiths, underscores beautifully the montage in the museum. We have a great deal of new age 80s bands making up a great portion of the soundtrack alongside the Beatles and a selection from the John Williams Star Wars score. This soundtrack existed as the backbone of the film and expresses Hughes' wide and hip, for the time anyway, musical tastes. This is something we've seen him do in previous films, but like the film as a whole, the collection of music plays like something John Hughes wanted to do for a while. But here's the rub. A soundtrack was never released. Hughes thought that no one would want Dankeschön and the Dream Academy on the same record and declined to mass market a soundtrack. However, members of the John Hughes fan club received a limited edition record with 2 of the film's songs on it. So if you're looking for an official soundtrack, you'll have to make one yourself. If you want the official track listings, you can visit my website at www.cigaretteburnpictures.com. This film uses everything in an artful way to tell a strong, entertaining, and heartfelt story. From the characters and dialogue to the humor and music, every aspect of this film complements the whole, telling a story that is both memorable and enduring. When we watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off, we get a sense that there is more to life than worry and fear. And that is the film's lasting appeal. The feeling of hope, freedom, and lightheartedness to existence itself. We learn that it's okay to have doubts, but you can't let those doubts control you. Ferris Bueller as a character exists as a sort of folk hero. His final words to us are just as true now as they were in 1986. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop to look around once in a while, you could miss it. And as the film ends, you have to ask yourself, has Ferris steered us wrong yet?